Thank you for joining us today for In Conversation with Kestin Cornwall and Michael Leapoy.
All right. Sure the camera's okay.
For the first time since 1994. And I mean, I don't remember what it was like back then because I was there for a funeral. All the same, just touching down and being there after working from Trinidad and Tobago is, it was just, it was lovely, for me. And I can't, I won't say comment on the health part. It doesn't really happen, until afterwards, like that, when you go through this crossing borders, the documents, and I went across with a child too. So, it's other, other kind of documents.
Right.
Too. It is stressful and we have to be mindful of, taking all those, drink the hot tea, the herbs, and, the Black culture, we have our remedies.
Yep. Shut it down for a couple of days and you'll stay to yourself, you have to do it sometimes.
So it's actually a good thing that you to a certain degree that you don't have a phone as yet, because that thing is gonna, I want your number, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you have like 50 people, right, to plug in. So take your time. I don't have one. Actually, I got a number just 2 days ago, but I haven't received a SIM card as yet, and that number will share when the time is right.
I feel you.
Yeah, but otherwise, no. To the Black cluster higher in our Black community and that high BIPOC, we share willingly in priority, right? Because that's why we're here, right?
Right.
We share with everybody, but our students, our kids in the Black communities, and that will just kind of lead to my last question. What are you looking forward to? Like when you get your apartment and you're settled down, you have your phone number, right? What's on number one, right?
Again, I think it would be the body. I can't stress out the idea of the body. So for me, it would be just focus on the kids. Focus on the students. I can't do anything else than give my loyalty to the students, and hopefully build up a channel in which both of us could learn something out of the experience or the process. So that's the only thing I could wish for, it's beyond the institution, beyond what I could give the institution is what I could give the kids, and how we could work it out together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Kestin would go ahead. Kestin, sorry.
I know that you mentioned in another call when we were having a conversation that you were that we were all excited to try and potentially cross programs where programs could work together.
Right.
I'm definitely excited about potentially trying to figure out a way to work on that. Plus, we all know that you were hired with us, so the group has always felt like we were missing a member. So we're excited to finally have you with us. I look forward to seeing you here. I watched a few of I have you on Instagram, and I was watching a few of your videos, and one of them I found really, really hard to watch at the beginning. But at the end, just like you said about your work early, that it felt like a healing process at the end. Like I understood it. At the beginning, I was like, what is this? And I was trying to understand.
Thank you.
When it comes to art like that, where it's more about the process, I'm still early in understanding that form of art. I've always been very illustration and design, and conceptual art is still new to me. So hearing you talk about it, I find moving. I find it exciting.
Oh, thank you.
Work. Did you want to let anyone know about any upcoming projects or?
I'm always working in tons of stuff. Like, I can't stop producing somehow, even though I'm working on different ideas right now. One of the ideas I'm working is trying to, how you would say, research more this area I mentioned before, the mosquito land, right? Try to do more research in that area. Try to be more engaged with the idea of migration and immigration in a way. You know, like most of my family went through that process. I didn't thought I was going to go through that process. No, I'm all involved in this process. And not because I'm involved into it, I feel forced to talk about it. But it's happened to be that one of my friends who works at UC Davis is working in a project in which she's trying to trace the Great Migration with her family migration to New York. So she kind of invited me to collaborate with her in that. And then I started talking about my family experience and migration to New York. And you're like, oh, maybe we should work something that traced the Caribbean and the Africa diaspora into New York. And she's from her family is Ethiopian. So she would trace it from Africa, and I would be tracing it, from the Caribbean or Costa Rica. So that's one project that I'm more recently kind of like thinking about, and it worked perfectly with my personal project with this area. You know, I could complement both of them, even though there might not end up being one project. There is still collateral research that I could do in both of them. And yeah, and working also with a friend out here in Toronto on a project that we did in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And this is an iteration of that. We did it 2019, 2018, and now we're going to do it 2020. And this is a project related to archiving. You know, part of my process also is related to archives. And yeah, we working with indigenous community out here in Toronto, artists from indigenous community in Toronto who are collaborating with indigenous people or artists from Chile, the Mapuche indigenous community in Chile. Then I would be working with my friend in UC Davis, and then there are other artists from Toronto, artists from a queer collective in Argentina, and we're working in a project related to that. And yeah, that will be kind of what I'm grasping right now that I could talk about.
That's great.
The rest is just ideas I'm working on, which I'm not sure where they're going yet.
That's great. I always wanted to ask the two of you this, so I'm just going to do it now. Is when you communicate and when you hear each other's stories from Trinidad and from your homeland, do you see like things that are similar? Are there things that are more relatable between those two cultures than here in Canada? Is there anything that comes to mind when I ask that question?
Well, I don't know. I would say that there is a lot of relationship. You know, like there is no denying that you share somehow the weather. You know, for me, weather plays a lot in my everyday life, right? You know, if you live in the Caribbean, you know, I'm gonna put it as simple as this: how weather determined the type of work I did in a time. You know, I was living up in the mountain, an amazing space. You know, my first studio in the middle of a jungle, let's put it that way. I was doing prints, and I was doing prints with water-based paint, right? So humid place, water-based, all my prints just got moldy, right? They were just through 3 weeks, they just got mold, and then it was like frustrated, you know, like wasting a lot of paper and stuff. And eventually, for me, it was like, why I'm fighting the weather? You know, like you didn't realize you're living in a place that this. So I start playing with the mold and create silk screens in which I would use blood or semen and just organic material to purposely get mold onto it and create the figure or create the image. You know, so yeah, weather is something that I could relate a lot. I'm sure Michael also relate to it, you know, and let's say the thinking of the region, the music, the food, you know, there's so many things that I'm pretty sure we share that it's not even necessary to say, you know, that there is part of like this idea nutting, you know, like the black nut that you just do it because you feel it or you just know it's something right, but you're not sure what it is. I would put it out there.
Agree, definitely weather, and I would have added to your, how your health is affected by, the tropics. You're it's just less clothes. I mean, if you choose to do that, if you choose to be outside, some people choose to be in air conditioning air-conditioned spaces, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, kind of divorced. But I think to what Martin was kind of saying, we definitely feel as part of the Black Atlantic or the African Atlantic, because it's a cosmopolitan down there, right? And it's like New York, it's like Toronto, it's like Montreal, it's like, maybe not Vancouver, but there's more mix. You see that more evident. Like I said, Kestin, at one point, just visually being in an environment of brown people has an effect on you.
Yeah.
You're not different anymore, right? You're like straight normal. And that just has a way of, that's healthy, right? To feel like, you're not alone. I mean, you might still be alone because you're, or outside of a specific tribe or geography, but still you're amongst brown people, right? And that's really nice. Yeah. And people of different cultures, right? It's not just, there's Asian, there's South Asian,
Exactly.
and there's Russian, there's German, there's a lot of different people and migration.
All of them are mixing,
Yeah.
like if you go to the Caribbean coast, you have kids that are, I like to make fun of this. I have friends who are Jamaican, Jamaican, so they're Jamaican, German, and Costa Rican, like they have a mixture of those three, and you see them and you're just like, where are you from? I can't tell, because you look so weird, and at the same time you look like the norm. That it's, who cares,
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of it, like not only the mixture, but I also try to understand those other culture, or at least leave them out of the spectrum in a way, to just try to be something in this specific region or area.
Right. And in as much as gender and race is major parts of North America, class, and we've always said that class down there is somehow just more more challenging, I should say, just because of the colonial project, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's prime. It's about getting capital. It's about being getting comfortable, right? As best, quick, fast as you can. Sorry.
A more extreme gap is what is a way of saying it.
Well, I would put it this way, the way I understand it is like America lives within a not a colonial, within a imperial system, right? So it's based on an imperial system. So let's say somehow there is an opportunity to advance in a way, like there are ways to filter yourself and get into that status of the monarchy or whatever, right? Within colonial, you have caste system. So caste system is more based on the mixture. So let's say I even have a piece that talks about it in terms of my family being better. It would take 4 generations, so it would be a process of 4 generations to get whiter, and that would somehow position me somehow in a better place, beyond the money, beyond, it's like this little ideas or concept or what is better, right? So that is well engraved within the colonial system, and that make it kind of hard for people to just get in a higher position, right? If you want to keep your values, you want to keep your, like, no, those are indigenous. We don't deal with that. They need to keep down there. They're not human, and you keep perpetuating those ideas. So even though you have the knowledge, you have the, we just want to rip you up, but the way you look is not part of our ideal. That Eurocentric ideal, I would say. So yeah, it's quite complex in that sense, I would say. And I think that's what is hard sometimes to people from America to understand the complexity of race beyond the south border of North America, right? It's more complex than just white and black. And again, you could also pay for it, because you could go to the church and you could say, hey, I want you to declare my family white. You'll say we're white. We came from a legacy of white people. You pay for it. So it's
a complex system. And it's the same. It comes from colonialism. It stems
right.
from colonialism. You mentioned something earlier. I just wanted to touch on before we finally before we wrap this up. It's been a great conversation. But you called it mosquitoes, which is interesting because early on, there were a lot of different cultures involved in slavery, from the Chinese to South Asians to obviously blacks. Because of Africa and diseases that mosquitoes carried, certain Africans built up immunity to those diseases, and that largely affected why blacks were by and large a large percentage of slaves, because out of all the cultures, they were the ones that could survive in the fields due to the history.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's funny that this place name. No. I mean, this place. The name of it is mosquito. It have like different names to it, right? And yeah, it's interesting that DNA is part of it, plays a lot within this context. And I would put it specifically in I've been reading more recently Gabriela Planck, I think is her name, and if it's not, I'm really sorry about it. I should have known her name. She is a writer that's been doing research within the Caribbean in terms of literature. So her research is specifically in literature, and in the sense that how the Caribbean have this, specifically Latin American Caribbean, right, have this history of writing, books and stories and stuff, and it wasn't published because the main language because they write them in English, right? And the main language of was Spanish, and they never got interest into it. So she started, right.
Yeah.
So she started exploring all these different writers through all the Caribbean and realizing how genius there were for their time and the amount of production they were doing, right? So she started talking about this term Panama Man in her writing. So the idea of a Panama Man is this idea that when they were building the canal, the Panama Canal, right? The French country started building it, so they didn't carry out because it was a dangerous area. As you mentioned, mosquitoes were a big problem. Humidity, the weather was like complicated, so they just left the project. After the French leave, I think it was like tons of years later that the American took over, right? Part of the project of the American taking over the canal was like, okay, we have to be more specific, more strategic about it. The French brought Asian people that didn't work out well. So we want to work with. So let's bring people from the Caribbean. And the other reason we want people from the Caribbean is because they speak English. So that would make it easy for us to communicate with them, right? So this create this kind of like how you would say movement of people from the Caribbean into Latin America and specifically Central America for the construction of the canal. And again, it was kind of like done in a nice way in which you could say that this character, the Panama Man, becomes almost like a rapper, or like the idea of a rapper right now. And I'm going to explain how it transitioned from this Panama Man all the way to a rapper, right? So this person would go over to the canal, the Panama Canal, work out there, make money, then go back to his country, wearing all white, like Panama suits, the cap, the cane, fronting. He go back to his country fronting. So people see him out there, and they're like, oh, I want to go out to Panama and do some money. So he become almost like a catch, like catfishing people to go back to Panama and work. And it kind of replicated this idea, right? So people would just flew over or go all the way to Panama in this ideal of making money and bring it back to their country. Most of those people it never happened. And that's kind of the history of my family, right? So it happened with the Panama Canal. So after that, it went through all the banana plantations, right? And all this enclave that the United Fruit Company created through all Central America. And again, this idea that you will go over to Costa Rica, work in the plantation, make money, go back to your country, never happened. Because they got tricked. The enclave system, the way it works is that we provide you housing, food, and work.
That's interesting.
But you have to pay for your housing, and you have to pay for your food, and the prices are way too high. So what you're winning barely pay out for the two of them.
So it's what record labels do to the rappers.
Exactly.
They rip off the money, yeah.
So it rip off the money, right? So it shift from working in a banana plantation. What came after banana plantation? Cruises, right? So you have people from all the Caribbean, again, interested in this idea. Oh, this guy went in a cruise. He went through all the Caribbean. Now he's popping the shirt. He's popping the sneakers. He's popping the change. I want to be a cruise guy. And then a lot of people went into this idea of the cruise and stuff. Now the rapper idea, the drug lord idea, I think it's a replication of this idea, the Panama Man, right? So yeah, I think there is this interesting story of the way, you know, the Caribbean kind of move around, and the way people move around the Caribbean in terms of not only, you know, the bodies, but all these ideas embedded into it, and the resistance in those movements. Because if we talk about Marcus Garvey also went to the banana plantation in Central America. That's where he started his movement, right? And I went from the banana plantation, the cruises, the hip hop, and the same would be with the Black movement. You know, the Black movement started in all this Caribbean region, but no one wants to give it credit or validation. And then it came all the way to North America. But once it came out here, we forget that legacy and that history. You know, because they're different from us. This is
value in reaching back and reminding people,
right,
of those stories. It's interesting because it shows how insidious a lot of the colonial plan is. Like the fact that they back people as marketing to bring in more. It's also interesting because it ties into your mass idea. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't know a ton about that, but listening to you talk about it's very, very interesting. Is there anything you wanted to input, Michael?
No, I think we could keep talking for another hour.
Well, we're going to call it a wrap. I appreciate the conversation. I'm not going to end the call. I'm just going to stop recording.
Cool.
Did you want to drop your Instagram handle? Say it to anyone.
Marton Robinson. You could just look for Instagram, Marton_Robinson. On Instagram, Facebook, Marton Robinson. My website, martonrobinson.com. And you could Google me. You could find information out there again.
For sure.
Assistant professor.
Facilitator, never professor. Facilitator.
blackocadu.ca. Shout out to Dory, and
thank you.
Be sure to check out our next episode, blackocadu.ca. Let's go.